So Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
I am learning so much in my current position. I do like to tell you stories, and there always seems to be a story or two that happened during the week. And of course, this one was no different because we had Halloween this week, right? Mm-hmm. So always interesting stories. And it's not the position or the people that I'm learning so much from, but the circumstances that we face every day in these positions that we work in, right? And so it was really interesting because, you know, we talk about the spirit world, and at work they talk about Harry Potter, and they are so like crazy about Harry Potter. And so it was Halloween day, and some of them dressed up in their Harry Potter costumes, and people come by and say, oh yeah, for my 30th birthday, my sister did everything Harry Potter, and all this kind of stuff. So I was talking to about 3 of them, these young ladies, after it was close to the end of work, and we're sitting there chatting, and they started talking about some things that brought in the whole idea of Ichabus Siccabus. And they've gone to university, and of course they studied mythology, right? And so one of the girls said, well, there is this, you know, mythical incubus, right? And so we just started talking a little bit more. And then I thought, you know, do I say anything about the spirit world? Because they're kind of poo-pooing the whole idea of the spirit world, and yet they like Harry Potter, which is all about the spirit world. I don't get that, you know, it's kind of like a tilt, you know. But I guess maybe they just think it's fun, kind of a thing. So anyway, I started to say, well, you know, I've been woken up by a hand on my back that shook me, right? And then we started talking about Ichabus, and I said, well, there is Ichabus and Siccabus, right? And so the one girl who had learned about it in university goes, yeah, actually, yeah, I think that is real. I don't think it is a myth. And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then she says, yeah, when I was little, there was this person in this house that would come and stand at the end of my bed. I would see this, because I wanted to open it up for people to know that there's a spirit world. And the reason is, if somebody has something happen to them, who are they going to talk to if everybody just poo-poos it, right? And that makes it sound like it's creepy. They'd have no one to talk to. And the more and more people are doing witchcraft, and the more and more it's getting darker, the more people are having things happen. And they're big. They're not just little things that happen. Massive things. Furniture's being moved. Things are being thrown. And this is happening in a lot of people's houses that I happen to know through people, right? And so I wanted to at least open this up. So she says, yeah, you know, and then she said, my aunt saw the same person, and the reason I know why is because my aunt described this lady to my mom that she was seeing, and it was exactly what I saw. She goes, so yeah, maybe this is true, kind of thing. And then we started talking about, you know, the little boy who bounces the ball in the bottom of the Victoria Information Center. It's one of the ones they list as one of the haunted buildings in Canada. And it's well known. And there was a girl who would go down and watch this boy bounce this ball. And so we started talking about all these things, right? And how people had seen people in houses and different things like that. And it was really interesting because this one girl, her mother, she always talks about how her mother was really religious and Christian, and how she had to go to Christian school, and it really damaged her. And she's really into Harry Potter, like a lot, right? And so she's in this conflict in her life of what she's going to believe or not believe. And as soon as we started talking about spirits actually existing, she's like, Charlene, I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. And I thought that was really interesting, right? And I said, well, you guys, the reason that I say these things is so that if something happens to someone, they can ask a question. They have somebody that is willing to listen to them and talk to them, and they're like, yeah. And I said, the other thing is, we always, if we don't understand things, we think everything is random. And I said, before, I always thought everything was random. Well, who wants to walk around thinking you can be randomly attacked by whatever? If you understand things as cause and effect, and you understand where things are coming from, I said, I was just excited to know, well, then I can do something about it. If we understand that. And they're like, oh, okay. So they were quite interested in the Halloween stories, on the spooky stories at Halloween in the office. Thought that was kind of interesting. But isn't it interesting how they think this way and all the things they're talking about? They're talking about the fact that now they're setting up, you can do Harry Potter everything in communities and hotels and holidays and all this kind of thing. So more and more, as people are doing these things and speaking out these words, more and more people are going to be attacked by souls of the dead or any demons, right? So much going on. And as they talk about their children even, and their behaviors they have, oh, my child has anxiety. I have 2 children with anxiety. Why does a 7-year-old have anxiety? You know, what is going on? There's 2 parents. I mean, you know, you kind of know them a little bit. There's 2 parents, and they talk to them, and they're always talking to them about things and telling them about things. And these are parents that actually talk to their children and explain things and spend time with them. And they're like on drugs and have high anxiety and are now having problems in the classroom. Well, that's got to be demonic. Things are going on, right? So more and more we're going to see this. And so we need to be well prepared to be able to look at situations in a way of love and understanding, so that we can speak out the words that we need to speak to sow seeds into people's lives. And then there will be the people who will accept the help to be able to have actual freedom as well, right? But we can't be just judging people on the outside and sticking them in a box. We can't, because we won't be any use to them. So as I'm going along, you know, in this position, I've been asking Yeshua to give me a bigger and bigger capacity to really learn what love is and come out of old ways of thinking and religious ways of thinking and condemnation ways of thinking. And having the courage to stand and be absolute, authentic in the truth and not budging. Being courageous enough to say what the truth is, no matter what they say, but being courageous enough to say it in love, not in condemnation, not in religiosity, but really taking the time to, how do I say this to them? How do I introduce things to them so that they can find some freedom or have some seeds planted in their life? And that takes courage. It also takes patience to stop and want to actually help them in loving kindness and not just spew out, oh, well, this is what I know. What, right? So knowing that we are not here to change anyone, and that's what I say every day at work. I am not here to change these people. I'm not here to preach to them. I'm not here, I am there to have the light of Yeshua shine through me, period. That's sow seeds, just sowing seeds, but nothing of a mission or anything. Just that everything they see is truth, and I won't bend on it, but it's done in love. So what stops us from loving others? What is it that we are hanging on to so tightly that's not working for us? What false hopes, false dreams, false pictures, or false truths and pride are we hanging on to so tightly that we're choking out all the possibilities that life right here, right now has in store for us right now? But we want to hold on to the things that keep us in Lodabar. Because we believe that if we let go of our current way of thinking and doing things, that we would be too vulnerable, that we would be lost, that we won't mean anything, that we won't get the glory, we won't be seen by others as something wonderful, or that we just see ourselves maybe just floating in a black abyss if we let go of these comfy things we hang on to. Can we imagine beyond the tip of our fingers, which I say is our flesh and our feelings, right? The tip of your fingers is everything you can do in your own strength to make you look good, to make you seem right? To make you feel like you're holy and righteous and forgiven and loved, doing it in your own strength. So, and I work on these on two sides when I'm at work. The spiritual side, where I am standing on the truth and speaking the truth and overcoming the fear to speak it in a manner that's appropriate for the people, for the setting, and walking in love. But then the physical part comes in, where Satan whispers all the time on the other side and says, well, when you go around and everybody introduces themselves, just remember you're just the person that deals with the paperwork. You're not the person that really matters or makes a difference, because all these other people actually have a job where they're a caseworker or they actually work with the people. And they're allowed to and they're paid to do it, but you're not. He tells me that all day, every day, in all kinds of situations. And I meet a lot of people and I have to introduce myself, right? And so I find this comes up all the time, and Satan tells me this. And he tells me, but these people have education that put them in this position. And they have these opportunities because of their education. And acceptance of the world comes into that, to have this position, right? And so all the time he comes up with all the things that you do with your hands, right? Get the university degree or whatever you need to do. And Satan says, you're too old, you're not educated, and he just goes on and on and on, right? Yet, here I'm in a position where the wisdom and understanding that I've gained through the Word, through learning about lay down, through living through the effects of trauma and how that all works, and what the release of it is like, is beyond the level of the mental health therapist who has a PhD. And I found that hard to type. But it's the truth, because I go and I talk to her, and I'll say things to her, and she'll go, oh yeah, that's a good idea, and she writes it down, right? Now, she knows a lot that I don't know, because she studied different things about the brain and how the brain works, but that's all learnable. It's all learnable. The whole experience of lay down, facing your pains and fears, and having release and freedom after, no one can teach you. No degree is going to help you. You have to feel your fear, lay it down, and go forward. That's the only thing. And it is the love of Yeshua that replaces the pain and heals the trauma, that bruise from trauma. And by going through this whole experience of lay down, we gain wisdom and understanding at a depth no one can learn, no matter how many degrees you get. It is the truth. That process of lay down is amazing. And so here I am in this place, and I have to say, why do I keep hanging on to those false things that Satan says, you have to have this, this, and this before you're acceptable. You have to have this, this, and this before you can have prosperity. It's a lie. Why do I hang on to it? Because every day I face it, and I'm still cuddling up to it. So today, are we willing to just say, I surrender my fears, my wrong thoughts of things, my fear that maybe that God isn't good enough, that God won't rescue me, he won't prosper me, that I won't, what if I don't get favor? Are we willing to surrender our dreams and our thoughts, that he can take all of us, and we can take all of us to Yeshua, lay down and say, you know what? I need to be built back up on what your truth is and not what Satan keeps telling me. A new way of thinking, a new way of reacting and of loving. Chasing feelings that are connected to loss, lack, pain, sympathy seeking, lies, all the yeah buts, all the what ifs, the fear of not having anything in our life unless we create it, unless we justify it, unless we can see it happening, right? Our imaginations, some of our imagination, well, probably guarantee all of our imaginations need to be stretched a whole heck of a lot when it comes to God and what he can do. So can we surrender all that to him and say, you know what, let's start from the bottom, from a new foundation, and learn what you can do and what we can do with you. Can we really meditate, which means surrender, and allow that all things are possible to actually enter into our life so that we can actually do what God wants us to do that brings glory to his name? Can we have the courage to allow our pride to be laid down and the surrender to make room for the capacity to receive the good gifts of God so that his glory can shine? Or do we just want to cuddle up with our cuddly limitations? How much are we willing to take the courage to ask others to pray for us for a particular item in our life? The ones that are messy, right? To pray for us while we go to lay down. That will allow us to move forward through a jungle of emotions, feelings, pressures, and hard things. Who wants to go to lay down and just cry? Right? It's messy. It's ugly. It hurts. Who wants to bring that up again? We don't go because we don't want to bring it up. You know, a lot of times we just don't want to face it. And I know, I got a whole list of things I don't want to face. But can we have the courage to face it? Because as soon as we face it and it's allowed to be released to Yeshua, we can go forward. Because we're going to have more wisdom and more understanding, and we will be able to go through. But it's that whole pressure, that whole yuckiness when you're in it. And we've created so many false things to support around that trauma and those ugly things. So many ways of thinking and alternate ways of, oh, well, I can handle it because I just do this or that or the other thing. You know, we always look at alcoholism and stuff, but I mean that, you know what? There's so many things when we really look at it. And I know for myself, I have not laid the things down about my mother. Should have done it years ago. And I can go through and I can tell you a lot of things. If I would have laid it down, this wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened. My mom wouldn't have felt rejected. You know, she felt rejected by me because I had let that all build up. I didn't lay it down, right? And so have I dealt with any of that? I can logically tell you lots of things. I can truthfully tell you none of it's been laid down. And as soon as I can lay that stuff down, I can walk in less guilt. I can walk in more power and understanding. And I don't have to know how I'm going to walk in more power and understanding and more love. I don't need to know that. I just have to have a big enough imagination to know that God's bigger than me. And that is the truth because of other things that have happened where I've laid things down and I've got more wisdom, I've got more love, I've got more patience, right? I've had more joy. So can we have the courage to allow our pride to be laid down and to make that capacity so we can keep going? Because really, honestly, we have so many things that we cuddle up to save us. We want to be able to go into that broad place where there's amazing freedom and peace. And there's always going to be people who are going to blaspheme you for that place wherever you stand. There will always be those who take their fears and small-minded cuddling paradigms that they hug, and they are going to curse you. But are you willing to ask for the courage and strength to go forward anyway? Can we humble ourselves under the mighty hand of God, surrendering to His will, and laying down our pride so that we can go forward in a way that we've never experienced before? And I think about all the things that I've been through to get into the broad place of where I am now. It's not where I want to stay. But the curses are still there, right? The curses are still there from the exact same people. They just take on a new angle, because guess what? They curse. That's their mode of operation. They're not going to stop no matter where I go. Nothing I can do can stop them. They have their journey, and it's not mine, and I just need to go forward. Do you get up every morning and still have the same fears, the same ways of thinking? What's the first things you think in the morning? Has it changed over time? I believe it probably has changed over time. There's times before when you'd wake up in the morning and you think, I don't want to go to work, I don't want to get up, I'm a loser, everybody says I'm a loser, and I'm pretty sure I am, right? And now you get up in the morning and you say, thank you for the new day. Thank you for the strength to get through that day. Thank you that you have something new for me today. I'm going to learn something new, right? So we're changing. Can we take it further? Are we looking at others through our limited paradigm? How many things do we do where we think we are doing others these massive favors and these massive things for them? But really, it's just all selfishness, our fears, and our pride. It was interesting, a lady came into the office this week, and she started chatting to me. She's got her social work degree, and she brought up her children, and then she volunteered like thousands of hours at the Mustard Seed. And with a social work degree, they took those volunteer hours, and she just needed to do 2 years of school, and she got her social work degree. And her husband said to her, well, do you want to do that at this point in your life? And she said, well, yeah, why not? Because my ceiling will go up and I'll get more opportunities, and who knows where this is going to take me. So she said through this all, her husband says to her, well, honey, I just don't know how you feel, like this is just so much, you going to school. And she looks at him, she goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, isn't this really hard? Hard is being at home when you work up north and I had little children. That was hard. This is not hard. Because, our perspective's not always correct. A lot of times we are too selfish to see what's really going on, or we choose not to see what's going on because it might take some time for us to actually go out and love the person and do something for them. So she said, it was funny the other day. She said, I come home and on the bed, all the socks are all folded and laid out on the bed. And he goes, look what I did. And she's like standing there and she goes, why did you put them away? Oh, he wants a parade. Because once he folded the socks. She goes, I did that every week for about 25 years. Didn't get a parade. And this lady comes out of her office. She goes, oh, your husband likes parades too. So does mine. He had 4 sisters and he was the only boy. She said, we had to teach him about parades really early. And she goes, thankfully I have a friend whose husband likes parades. So now they just parade each other because we don't put up with that. Sometimes we want to parade over nothing. Over what you dirtied the dish, you cleaned it, and you want a parade? Are you kidding me? Right? So sometimes we don't even know we're doing it. Right? We don't know we're doing it. We're in our own little world, hanging on to our stuff. And it's really just selfishness and our pride and all that kind of thing, right? I was given a birthday gift once, and it was a radio for the kitchen. And I knew it wasn't a gift for me because I don't care about listening to the radio in the kitchen. It was for the person who bought it, right? And so, good for them, they got a radio in the kitchen. So, what do we do every day where we think we're loving people, but really we're just only, touting our own, blowing our own horn, tooting our own horn, trying to calm our own fears, and not walking in truth, teachability, power, long-suffering, kindness to ourselves, and kindness to others. Because there is too many times when we are not kind to ourselves. Too many times when we take that critical spirit and we get up in the morning and we start answering that critical spirit as soon as you look in the mirror. Right? Oh, can't do anything with my hair today.
I say that every day.
Every day. Jerry says that every day. Right? The hair is wrong, your clothes don't fit right. Well, this is what women think anyway. I don't know if some guys do, but and I don't look good, and I don't feel good, and, don't have the right shoes or whatever it is. But there are things that we say, and if we really look at it, we're too critical to ourselves as well. So that, we can look at that. When we pray for others, is it out of obligation, out of fear, out of, I pray for others. Pat me on the back, there's another parade, right? Maybe we want to pray for that too. Or do we every morning choose to pray for someone because we consciously choose to love them? Or make a choice, consciously make a choice. I know for myself there are mornings when I ask, do we need to pray for that particular person today? Because I'm really kind of tired. And instantly I get persevere to the end. I'm in the army of God, and we all are, and we are to set people free, right? Push on to the mark, love at all times. And so those mornings I need to declare that I choose to love that person today and thank God for their freedom and pray for them, right? Because Satan wants us to stop. Oh, come on, you prayed about that 6 billion times. Well, close on some things, right? But people have prayed for 6 billion times for you to get rid of whatever you need to get rid of too, right? So Yeshua wants us to take stock and to get real with ourselves and get down to the foundation of our actions, of situations, and then he builds us back up, right? A lot of us, people get to their breaking point for a reason, is when they call on God, right? Because then he can break down, all those barriers are broken down, and then you can sweep off the bottom and start with a foundation and start building back up, right? But we have to get down to the broken part before we're humble enough to listen, teachable enough to listen. So letting go of these pictures that we have in our mind that aren't based on any truth. We have to get down to that part where those are all broken down, right? Yeshua can work with those who will surrender, to listen, so that he can lead them out of Lodabar and bring them to the king's table healed and whole and prosperous. But he can't bring you there if you're not willing to have the humility and get rid of the pride. Because you'll just get in a position where you can hurt yourself more and hurt others more. So are we willing every day to look at what thoughts we have and take them captive with the truth of the Word of God? So I started to think about these things that I face at work. Where, now they're having Halloween and they're dressing up, right? So I can take on, what a bunch of heathens. I'm not having any part of that, right? And we could go on and on and on, right? I'll just remove myself. Well, I'm not going to show up to work. I'll just take the day off, right? I wouldn't have been able to tell spooky stories that were real. I would have missed it. But you know, there's a word that I've started to not like, and it comes from that whole religious spirit of, if I say the word church to you, what comes to your mind? When you're out talking to people and they say, yeah, that person's a church person, what are the paradigms that come into your head automatically? Don't associate me with that, right? Religious, bigot, fake. That's sad, right? Self-righteous, right? Hypocrite. Yeah, oh, I forgot. Yeah, hypocrite, right? Isn't that sad? That's what we think. But so does everybody else out there, right?
I saw a Facebook post the other day. It said, not going to church because of the hypocrites is like not going to the gym because of the other shape people.
Very good. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I have to remember that when somebody says that.
I'll write it down for you.
Okay. Well, I want to be able to say that when someone, I don't go to church because of the hypocrites. Oh, yeah. So, and then I started to think of some areas where, because I want to get all that religion and that churchianity and all that stuff out of my life. I don't want to sit there and go, because now we're going into Christmas and they're all over Christmas party, right? And Charlie's like, la, 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 la. I'm not saying a word. I pressed no, I'm not going, but it's coming, right? Sorry? Yeah, exactly. So I just don't want to say Mary Saturnalia, you know? But you can imagine the conversations. These people are talkers. They're psychologists. They like to talk about things. Should be interesting, right?
Happy Festivus to the rest of us.
Yeah. Oh, that'll be coming in, I'm sure. Oh, it should be interesting. So, but we relate the church and all that stuff to people standing outside of abortion clinics. When I say church, I think of people standing outside of abortion clinics, harassing teenage girls going to the abortion clinic. It's like, you're kind of, your timing's not great, because I think you would have had to, maybe harass them way over there, because they're already here, and why are you harassing them here, and they're teenagers, right? And they are. And so that's what I think of, right? Another thing came up this week with, Lauren Daigle, singer. She actually did a debut song, her latest worship song, on Ellen. And so now there's a video out calling her an enemy of God. And there's people coming against her because she did her debut Christian song on a show with Ellen, who is outright very, gay, right?
Don't shine your light in the darkness.
Thank you. That's exactly where she needed to be, because the light shone in the darkness, right? If that's what you claim that's dark, why wouldn't you want the light there, right? So these kinds of things happen. But how do we do this in our own life? And with each other, act that way, because we have our paradigms, we have our cuddly little things that we cuddle up to. We can do that to others in the congregation too. So we need to be open to know about this. Then another thing I looked up was there's this man named Michael Ketterer. Yeah, he's a father of 6. He has 5 children who were adopted. One of them has cerebral palsy because of being shaken baby syndrome. And they adopted him. He's a worship leader and he's a nurse, and he was on American Idol. And Simon Cowell was brought to tears because the truth and the love that shines through this man. And he's so authentically him, like he's not fake in any way. And Simon saw the man and the father in Michael was the same as Garth Brooks. And he asked Garth Brooks to write a song for Michael's final performance, right? And he did it, and it's called Courage to Love. And these two men, Garth Brooks and Michael, are bringing the heart of the father to the children and the children to the father just by the love that they have for their families and for other people, right? But it might not look how you see it to look. But you want to play the song?
Sure.
Sure, play the song right now.
If you're ready.
Yeah, sure.
You're gonna get a million answers to what's the measure of a man. From the softness of his heart to the hardness of his hand. It's always been the same old question ever since this world began. But a man can learn a lesson that he don't understand. Any fool can pull the trigger, anyone can start a fight. But to love is so much bigger, and so beyond what's black or white. And if we're gonna give our children a future that is bright, the truth must be the answer, and love must be the light. The hardest thing you'll ever do is tell someone you're sorry. You'll never be the bravest man if you can't admit you're scared. And what you do and what you say, strength it's gonna take to stay, comes from somewhere high above. That's the courage to love. If you're gonna give yourself to somebody else, then you gotta love someone more than yourself. Hardest thing you'll ever do is tell someone you're sorry. You'll never be the bravest man if you can't admit you're scared. What you do and what you say, and all the brain to walk away, comes from somewhere high above. It's the power, it's the courage. Oh, it's beautiful. It's the courage to love.
So that's what Garth Brooks wrote for him.
Very good.
Yeah. And so I thought that was really what really comes through, and what all the judges say is that what they like about Michael is that they know that who they see there is the person he is, and that he does love people that way, and he is that same way, and they're just overwhelmed by the truth and the love that comes through him. And Simon Cowell noticed this guy is like Garth Brooks, like he put them together. You know what I mean? He could see. And where do they get their strength from? They get it from God. They read the Bible, right? So these people are shining through and seeing this stuff. And of course, Simon Cowell had a son, and as a father, he's learned a whole different way of life. And then he sees these men who love their families, right? And it's just, yeah, it's really incredible. And Michael, when him and his wife first started out, they said, we'll never be good parents. We don't think we can parent. We won't have any children. And she got pregnant, and they had their one girl, and then she had a dream. And she kept having this reoccurring dream about these 3 little boys, and one of them might die. And then they decided to foster, and it was 3 little boys they got given who lived literally like feral children out in the bush. And they looked after him, and then they called about this boy with cerebral palsy because they were the only foster parents where there was a nurse, and Michael's a nurse. So they brought him and they said he won't see, he won't eat, he won't walk. Well, he's walking and he's seeing and he's eating. And he's doing these things. And then they tell him, who healed you? And he goes, Jesus did, right? So, and then they have another boy as well, who's just, she said, the cherry on top. And I have a cherry on top too. I talk about Jaden's the cherry on top in our family. So it's so interesting how our light can shine. But if we get out of that religious way of thinking and expand ourselves to the capacity that we can see outside that. There's some people that will look at Michael and he's got tattoos and put him in a box. Right? Some people don't even see the tattoos, right? Some people look at him, oh, well, he's got an earring in his nose. And they would put him in a box, right? Those are just the outward things, right? So another thing that came up, which is really interesting, I don't know how we got onto this, but one of the girls said something about Will Smith. And this was really interesting because another word that we think about, and we have so many paradigms and things that we hang on to, is marriage. So many wrong thoughts. So much Satan has attacked it, right? And so somebody had mentioned about Will Smith, and then I found on Facebook his wife, Jada, has started a show called Red Table Talk. Yeah. You've seen it? Yeah. Okay, is anybody else? Not living.
I saw the clip you're leading up to talking about it.
Did you see the clip?
I think I saw the clip.
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, so I watched the whole thing, right? And what's really interesting is there was 3 things that came out of it. Was they sat down, he was their first guest. And so he comes home, and he's built this really nice house for his wife, which she doesn't like, by the way. It's not her thing, but he was doing it for her, right? And he comes home from doing a movie or whatever, and he says, my whole house has turned into the Red Table studio, and there's people everywhere. Kitchen, garage, like with monitors and everything. Like, it does not look like a house. And so he walks in and he says to his buddy, so you're going to come back me up, right? And the guy's going, not a chance, man. You are dead, man. Like, you're a dead man. You're going up against your wife. Your daughter's going to be there and your mother-in-law. Like, you are dead, right? So and of course he's laughing, right? He's going, no, you're supposed to like spruce me up for the fight, right? And anyway, but it wasn't a fight. It was really interesting because they sat down and talked about their relationship and what it was like. And the first thing they talked about was her 40th birthday, and she wasn't feeling very good emotionally because, you know, she'd had her children and Will's away doing all his movies and all these things, and they're at the top of their game. Will says, we're at the top of our game. He'd had, I think, a movie, she'd had a movie, and Willow had had a song. And to the whole world, they looked perfect. And what does he say? He says, we were absolutely done. Like, there was nothing good underneath. We looked good to the world, and we were totally and completely not good at all. It was distraction. And for somebody to say that, right? Big deal. It was a really big deal because he'd always had a dream when he was 5 years old. It wasn't a dream. It was his choice. I'm going to grow up. I'm going to have a family. I'm not going to be like my dad because my dad hit my mother. And we will not be swearing in my household. And we will not be yelling in my household. And they kept to that because that was what he had decided, right? And he wasn't going to do that. And so for him to even say the words, here we look good, but we weren't good. He said, I had created a picture. And the picture looked really good on the outside. And it was totally destroyed underneath. That's a lot of pride you got to lay down in his position as well, right? And to say it publicly. And so on her 40th birthday, he threw this bash of all bashes, right? For her 40th birthday. And he had celebrities, and he found things that his grandma her grandma had written to her, and he made it all public right there, first time she heard it, which was really hard for her to take. And all the pictures from her 40th birthday, she is sad. And he said, man, when she looked at me and said, that party was for you. He goes, ouch, ouch, right? Because it was a party he was doing, so he felt good. Look at me, I'm loving my wife, and she didn't want any of it. And so he was willing to say that. And so they talk about it, and he came out, he said, we cannot make anyone happy. And everyone has to have the courage to work on ourselves and do what we're supposed to do. And we say that according to God's will. He didn't say that, but we say that. And it's up to each of us to allow the love of Yeshua to heal us and flow through us, right? And that's what they came down to, was they literally said, you know what? He said, we broke up. We were married, we didn't get a divorce, but we looked at each other and said, we are broken and we break up. And then he said for several months, or maybe even longer, he read books. And they'd already taken communication classes a long time ago. But he said, I read books on relationship and fixing myself, and she had to do the same thing. And so he said, now we choose to be life partners, and we don't use the word marriage. Because there's a lot of false, crappy things that people say, well, when you're married, right? And in the church, it is more than ever. In Christian churches, what their idea of marriage is, most people wouldn't sign up for it. If they really, actually nobody would sign up for it if they really knew what it meant. Because it's not what God says. So if you get a chance to watch that video, I'd say watch it, because they really come down and they say, we choose to be life partners together, to go through life. We are together, and they've gone through all the conversations and put it all in. And he says, he said, we go on holidays for 10 days, and we do something new and exciting. And then I come back, and for 10 days, I do the Christmas tradition thing, and we do the same old thing again and again and again. Because she likes the tradition of things. He finds that boring. But they've made a relationship. They built a relationship, they said, from the bottom, and they had to build it back up. We have to do the same thing with Jesus, with Yeshua, because we have been taught so many false things, so many wrong paradigms from churches, from parents, from society, that we need to shake it all down and say, no, this is what Yeshua wants me to do. This is who he is, and build your relationship back up. Oh, I'm really late, sorry. Too many stories, sorry. Okay, so now we're going to take these three things, and I want you to think about it. As the assembly of the Father's love, we're learning more and more every day about the Sabbath day. And Robert gave Bible study or church service on the Sabbath day. This is where we are going to find freedom and truth in order to build our foundation. And the reason is because there is power and freedom in the Sabbath day. That keeping this day, not just keeping it as we don't go to work or we go to church, but that we actually ask Yeshua to give us the revelation knowledge of how to actually celebrate the Sabbath day, so that we can have God's glory, power, redemption, healing, and wholeness for us and others in this day. That Robert spoke about that. Gerald said a while ago, he said, well, if we really knew what we were supposed to be doing on the Sabbath day, you'd be quite surprised. I'm ready. Let's go. Because there is power in this day, because Satan has no right in this day. This day represents the 1,000-year reign when he has no part in it. He's not going to be there. It doesn't represent him whatsoever, because he's going to be tied up in the chains of everything that we've laid down. So, this day is what we do on this day, how we call in Yeshua into the day on the Sabbath day. We are going to have the revelation knowledge, because we have learned that we can get the Rhema word from our Father in heaven and hear our Father in heaven's voice on the Sabbath day. So we need this because of what's happening in our society, because of the darkness coming in. We need the light to shine. And we are told we have victory in Yeshua. all the things that are going to happen to people at the end time do not have to happen to us. We can be those who we're supposed to be those who manifest the glory of God, right? And receive the good gifts of our Father in heaven. Because like he said, if my sons can't receive my good gifts, how can my glory shine? And it's through the Sabbath day, that day of refreshing, of redemption. Jody was reading them on the way over here. Refreshing and redemption and the power. So we know that Satan is locked out of this day. So what do we have that we're missing so much? And that you can walk by someone and they're healed. So, and we know Jesus healed people on the Sabbath day. He did lots of things on the Sabbath day because there's power in this day. So Yeshua died to set us free. And when he went down to hell, he took back those keys of the kingdom. And that timer has been set on Satan. And he's locked into time, but we are not. So, to have the love of Yeshua flow through us as a result and flow through this assembly, we are going to learn more and more about the power and the healing of the Sabbath day. So are we willing to surrender our plans, our habits, our rituals we do on the Sabbath to allow Yeshua to show us more and more of how we can have freedom through keeping the Sabbath day truly holy? And what does it mean to keep this day holy? Are we ready to surrender all our fears, our false freedoms, to see that we can move mountains on this day, to walk by people and see them healed, to see patience, kindness, and forgiveness flowing from Yeshua through this assembly and out to others? So, November 6th is lay down. What are you willing to surrender, and what are you willing to make room for by coming to the altar and allowing the past to be released and accepting what Yeshua has right now, right here in the Sabbath day? Do we have the courage to love God so that as his children we can go forward, allowing his glory to shine in the darkness like we're supposed to? And what's that going to look like? Where will we be? And what are we going to be doing? And we thank him for revealing that. In Yeshua's name, amen.